send up.
Okay, so call to order. Our second order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to do something a little unusual and ask that we actually stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, as I think in a time of pandemic when we're not seeing too much of each other, it's good to remind ourselves that we are all part of one nation and one community. And I believe we can make this pledge without an actual flag being present. So I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So welcome to our technology-driven May 5th, 2020 Tiverton School Committee meeting. Our first order of business is April's student enrollment report, and I'm just going to remind everyone that we are monitoring Facebook comments and questions. So if there are questions from the public, our communications director, Julie Delcourt, will let us know. So Dr. Sanchioni, our April student enrollment report.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the monthly report you received. So it compares March and April. 1,717 students were registered in March and 1,718 students in April. So we picked up one student, but our population continues to be consistent throughout this entire year.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Mrs. Black? Okay, and just to point out, Mrs. Black is here on cell phone with me, so you won't be able to see her lovely face adorned with gold. Mrs. Palish?
Nope, all set.
Okay, and Mrs. Barnworth had a work delay, so she will not be joining us for a little bit. And have we heard from Mrs. Pavo yet?
Still, I think, struggling to get in on the link. I don't know why, but Dave, you sent it to her again? Okay. I would say any minute.
Okay. And Ms. Delcourt, any questions or comments from Facebook?
Not at this time.
Sorry?
Not at this time. There are no questions.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, item number 4, our policy development revision and review policy number 1185, responsible use of technology by students, first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, so our policy, responsible use of technology by students, you may recall earlier this year, the school committee approved that policy. A lot of work went into developing that. We had it reviewed by the ACLU and a couple of their attorneys, and they made a couple suggestions to add a few lines. The lines they asked us to add were actually part of either our thinking or were in there, but maybe not as explicit as they would have liked it. We felt like what they were recommending was an enhancement. So David Carnavale took a long time to work with them. I'm going to turn this over to him, have you explain what's being added and why.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchioni and school committee. So after speaking with the ACLU, I actually spoke with them directly on April the 16th over the phone, and we discussed the current acceptable use policy that we have for students. And they really wanted us to add some information in there in regards to distance learning and devices being taken home. After much speaking with them and going over the different softwares that are used, they felt very confident in most of our acceptable use. They just wanted us to add a few bullet points. Those bullet points were in your packet to be added into the 1185 acceptable use for student technologies. And with your permission, I'd like to answer any questions in regards to that, if there are any. But they are very straightforward in regards to us not accessing students' computers when they're unaware.
Dave, before we take questions, can you gloss for us and for the public a little bit of what the gist of the issues were and what sort of language we added?
Absolutely. So a couple of the issues and questions that were given to us in regards to the acceptable use policy and distance learning were the remote access to the students' computers. They wanted to make sure that none of the staff were accessing student computers when they were not in that specific class with the teacher or with technology accessing it without their knowledge. They wanted to make sure that if we wanted to get information directly off of a machine, that we had a policy in there to make sure that we were letting them know that information was being pulled from the machine. The district will not access the students' microphones or cameras without their knowledge, as well as only during live teaching is when a student would have a camera going or their microphone going with a faculty member. The district also would not put the tracking on without permission from the family or permission from the law enforcement or something if we were looking for a stolen device. That was something that they really wanted in there because they were fearful that some of the third-party softwares on there could track students' locations without them knowing. And I rest assured them that our software does not do that. But we did go over how it would be nice to have something in the policy to make sure that the families reading this understand that we cannot know where they are unless they give us permission to access the device. So that's kind of the gist of the additional ads that we did put in there.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept.
A
Okay.
second read?
So actually, this is first reading, I think, Deb.
Yes.
So would you care to withdraw the motion?
Yes, nope, you're right.
Thanks.
We haven't had policy in a while, so.
I know. Right? Well,
Forget the procedure.
you know, I think the thing we should remark upon is how facile we've all become with this, not actually how we continue to sort of figure out all the technology and everything and kind of keeping track of things.
Mhm.
Anyway.
And Dave, is this first read? Is this on the website if people want to see it?
Yes.
Or can we put it on there?
It's
Yeah.
on.
It's on, okay.
Okay. So first, thank you to the policy subcommittee for addressing this and for Mr. Carnavale as well, all your work. So I'm going to open the floor to questions from the committee first. Ms. Palish? Subcommittee, so, oh,
Nope, I'm all set, thanks.
okay.
It was explained well.
All right, good. Mrs. Black, any questions?
Yeah, well, it's good. It'll go up so people can see it. If they have any questions, they can, ask. That's good.
Okay,
They'll have a chance to look at it.
all right. And Mrs. Pavo, did I see you flash?
Yes, I
Okay.
just got in, so I
Okay.
missed the conversation.
So we just reviewed we're on item number 4, which is the review policy number
Okay, yeah,
1195. And Mr. Carnavale had gone over some of the additional things that had been put in the policy at the recommendation of the policy subcommittee and the ACLU. And it was really just about being sure that students were not being monitored remotely or having their cameras or microphones accessed without their knowledge, and nor would be the devices be traced unless it was an issue where it had been lost or stolen, and then appropriate permission granted to do that. Do I have the basics down, Dave?
yes.
Okay, so Elaine, if you're this is only our first reading, so if you have any questions now, by all means, chime in.
Okay. Okay, I'm all set because I had reviewed it myself. Thank you.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. And I'm going to open it up to any administrators who are in the room.
I think Diane's on.
Oh, Diane.
Yep, Diane's on now.
All right, we have full strength. Mrs.
I
Carver.
have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. And any of the administrators who are on the Zoom right now have any questions or concerns?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, and Mrs. Delcourt, are there any comments or questions from the public? And just be conscious if you are following us on Facebook, please keep the questions to the topic at hand. Otherwise, we'll be in violation of the open meetings law. So anyway, Ms. Delcourt, any questions on policy number 1185 from the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are no comments at this time, and I'd just like to say that we are going to monitor the YouTube channel only. There's no Facebook channel that is being monitored at this time.
Okay, thanks. All right, so we're on YouTube, not Facebook. Is that right? Okay. All right, so this is first reading, so we will take this up again. If there are no other questions or concerns, we'll take this up again in our next meeting. All right. Okay. So now let's move on to old business. Item 5A, distance learning plan update. Dr. Sanquioni?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can see we have several topics under the distance learning plan we'd like to discuss with you tonight. And the first one is graduation plans for the class of 2020. A lot of positive, great ideas have been put in place here to try to make this as special as possible. And before we get into explaining those with you, I want to give you a look at a real quick video about a really special event that's about to take place the remainder of this week. So Dave, can you show that video?
Oh, nicely done.
Yes, I'd like to publicly commend our Director of Communications, Julie Delcourt. The idea came to fruition. Let's honor the seniors and make sure we can do a sign. And as you've seen other communities do, there's signs, class of 2020, nothing like what's happening in Tiverton. Personalized sign, kid's picture, kid's name, going to be placed on everyone's lawn in the next couple of days. It's really beyond the call. And I just want to publicly commend her for that amazing work she's done. So thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
My
They're really nice. Great
pleasure.
job.
Great group of
I
kids.
love the QR.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the QR, take a chance to look at that. I think it's just available, but some great videos and songs, again, celebrating the seniors. I also want to make note that isn't the end of it, that there's actually signs that are going to be placed on the telephone poles around Tiverton, again, highlighting every senior. So just a step further to make this as special as possible for those students. So that is a prelude. Moving into graduation, we've been talking a lot about how best to honor the seniors in a very difficult time. And I think we've come up with a really positive plan. Matter of fact, it's been so positive that multiple other schools in Rhode Island now want to copy what we're doing. So I feel good about that. But I'm going to turn to Principal Ashley right now, have him talk to you a little bit about how this is coming together and who he's working with and what the eventual plan is going to be.
Yes, thank you. And first, thank you again, Ms. Delcourt. The signs look wonderful. I know the seniors are really going to look forward to them. It's a real special token to their accomplishment. So to reiterate Dr. Sanquioni's point about this is a difficult time, and certainly it's been especially tough for our seniors, not the circumstances they were hoping for as we were going into our senior spring. But we're committed to making graduation a special event still. obviously while still respecting the governor's demands around social distancing and being safe. And so what we're looking at is this modified drive-in approach where we'd allow our graduates to come to the building and have a preset schedule in place and have a traffic flow around the parking lot where graduates can come in at, again, designated times, come in, step off into the gym, receive their diploma actually, and while they're doing that, go onto a stage. There'd be a live video recording that we plan to have simulcasted to a large screen that would be in the parking lot so that all of the parents and the graduates that are in the parking lot can view the graduate walking onto the stage, get the diploma. We'd still be respecting the social distancing mandates, and then have that graduate exit through a planned route, drop off the gown, and then have them exit the building. You know, with that piece around the graduate coming in, we'd really want to make it as special as we can. So we're starting to talk about some of the details in terms of the decorations and how we'd have celebratory messages in the gym and around the parking lot. We'd have music playing and trying to give options to students about how to personalize that experience. And so the planning now is thinking about the logistics of that and the timing and makeup of it. You know, but again, really just committed to making it still a special, memorable event, recognizing the important milestone that graduation is as they go on to transition into, you know, post Tiverton High School.
And Mr. Ashley, would it be all right if I added a couple things?
Please.
Yeah, so, and I know there's a lot to think about here. So with the simulcast, not only showing it on a screen to the people in the parking lot, but that would also be broadcast over our YouTube channel. So everyone at home could be watching the entire event also. Part of the thinking too was that when the students arrive with their parents, we'd have a DJ there, and that person would announce them sort of like, you know, at a wedding with the wedding party, and they'd actually get to pick a walk-up song. So, you know, something to look forward to. And then lastly, to have a photographer there, a professional photographer, to take pictures of the students and their family as they exit too. So there's probably more ideas that can still be added, but I want to put those things out there because I think there are several of the ideas that can really make this special.
Yes. You know, and I do want to recognize the class advisors. We've been working with them and our student leaders, been in ongoing communication with them over several weeks. You know, it's been a tough at times, but I commend them for staying positive and trying to work with, you know, the situation that we have so that we can still make it the best graduation we can.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thankuni and Mr. Ashley. I want to give Abby Poland and Abby Forcier an opportunity to speak now. They had asked to come and present to us as well. Are you guys ready to speak?
We're ready.
Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
First of all, we just really wanted to thank you. I'm Abby Forcier, for those of you who don't know. I am president of the senior class, and Abby is the vice president. So we really just wanted to start by thanking the whole council for allowing us to speak our ideas and to be heard. We just really want to represent the class and the ideas that we have come up with together and some ideas that we really want to see come to fruition. So Abby's going to start with talking about the date situation.
So I'm Abby. I'm the vice president of the senior class. And one thing that we feel very strongly about is that we should postpone the graduation until August. I know that's pretty controversial, but it gives us some time and some hope to have a semi-traditional or as traditional as possible graduation. So, and I know that come August, if our governor has not lifted any restrictions or allowed us to have a traditional or in-person graduation, then I feel as though at that point, we can at least know that we did try. But I feel as though if we do have a graduation in June and then something happens and the governor lifts some restrictions and we could have had a semi-normal graduation later in the summer, I feel like all the seniors are probably going to be pretty upset and frustrated. So I feel as though if we can at least wait and hold off until August, it would be better than having it until June. And I also feel as though, for obvious reasons, the senior class is pretty down right now. So I feel like it'll give us some hope, even if it ends up being false hope and we have to have a modified graduation, as Mr. Ashley was speaking on. But at least it does give us some hope and something to look forward to. And I feel as though that we should keep it postponed until August.
Okay.
And I just wanted to bring up that there was an article posted about Barrington wanting to postpone their graduation. One of the members of the senior class, her father works at Roger Williams University, and he has actually gotten information that they're postponing their class of 2020 graduation until late August. And they have obviously a much larger graduating class than what we do. And they're very close to us. So the circumstances for both same state and same circumstances. Also, Old Rochester, Durfee High School, and Somerset Berkeley have put out plans to postpone their graduation until late July or early August. So I think it definitely should come under review that we should wait and just really make sure we know all of our options before possibly making a premature decision that could hurt us, the class, in the end.
So if I understand what you're saying is that Mr. Ashley and Dr. Sanchioni and I guess others have come up with a plan for having it, I believe, on June 10th. Is that the right date?
June 5th, I believe.
June 5th? June 5th.
Pardon me.
Okay. But what you're suggesting is that rather than go ahead with that plan, wait until later in the summer where there may be more options for something a little bit more traditional than what they've outlined. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yep, exactly that.
Okay. I'm going to open up questions from the committee. Ms. Farnworth?
I'm listening to both sides of this. The one question that comes to mind pretty quickly is if the governor, in every indication I've seen on her daily briefs and all, I mean, they've actually, I believe they've had to cancel anything in large groups, including the Newport Jazz Festival, the Folk Festival, and among other things. I know weddings are being postponed, canceled, etc. The main question that comes to mind now is if we were to have to do this in August under the same plan because the restrictions were not lifted, my concern is weather related at that point, and the fact that our gym is not air conditioned to the best of my knowledge. How would that work?
So
I mean,
we actually, sorry.
Go ahead.
So we actually wanted to propose some alternate ideas other than the one that Mr. Ashley and Dr. Sanchioni proposed that didn't involve having it in the gym. We have two ideas. The first is a little wishful thinking, devil's advocate situation where we have it on the football fields, but we have student or graduates sit 6 feet apart. We could go out with tape or spray paint, what have you, and measure exactly that, and then have only immediate family members, as in just parents and siblings, lining the track at a safe distance apart from each other. We could also utilize the area outside of the fence that lines the track, as well as on the bleachers, again at a safe distance. And this would still allow us to be there together, having one last hurrah before we all leave for school. It really would give us the closure that we were looking for. And it could still be streamed through Facebook Live for people who are not immediate family members or friends, other community members who would like to see us. And we could always help with the setup if we do it in late August or early August, late July, and janitors might not want to help set up or whatever the circumstances may be. We have very dedicated parents, and all of student council would be more than happy to help with any setup or cleanup that is necessary.
Ms. Farnworth, anything else?
Not at this time.
Okay. Mrs. Pavo?
Not right now, thank you.
Mrs. Palish?
Yep, thank you. I don't think, is it Abigail? Abby? What do you?
Abby, we both do
Abby? Okay, I know I'm Deb, but so Abby, I don't think it's controversial at all to be throwing things out there and sort of talking through what you guys want. I mean, this is just so unprecedented. None of us have done it before. We are all, we're parents, we're grandparents. We know how special this is because, not too long ago, or not too far from now, this is our kids that were experiencing it. So please don't think that, having a different approach is controversial at all. It's not. My only concern with waiting, well, one of them is I like the idea of doing something in June because I want to ensure that we get to do something where we are. So right now, we know what the distancing rules are. We know what the limitations are. We know that we can only do A, B, and C. So I like the idea of embracing where we are and having a celebration that includes the students, that includes the parents, that has something, because my fear, and that does not preclude doing something in August, whether it's a prom or a class trip or even something bigger on the football field. My concern is if we don't do anything on June 5th and nothing, and we cross our fingers and we hope that we're not going to be able to do anything. I do worry in August. I know when mine went to college, he went early. So I do worry that we'll be missing kids because they'll already be transitioning into college, or kids who who aren't going to college, they'll already be working their full-time jobs. Some are going into the military, they're already be gone. So I do worry a little bit about just not getting anything type of deal, that nothing's lifted and nothing's really changing in 2 months. So I like this idea only because I think it ensures we do get a celebration, and we do celebrate you, and we do wrap you up in our arms as our community wants to do. But I certainly understand the ideas and the wanting to get something. My concern is just if we don't get it, then we end up with nothing. And like I said, I don't think it precludes doing something in August if the state of the state changes, and we know it changes every day, it changes monthly. But those are sort of my thoughts. I don't know, Dr. Sanchioni, maybe we can do some sort of survey monkey and to the all 100, what do we have, 150? I don't know how many graduates we have. 150, what?
128.
So if we could send to 128 graduates and their families and try to get, just feedback, because honestly, at the end of the day, it is their graduation. It is an unusual situation. I would be curious, sort of survey everyone and see, hey, would you like to do something now? Because we want to ensure you're going to get something. And I love this idea, by the way, it's so much, I've heard so many other places around the state are just doing virtual, and this is above and beyond that, and I love the idea, but at the end of the day, it's not my graduation, so I don't know if it's possible. I know it's possible. We can do some sort of survey monkey, send it to the graduates, send it to the parents, because this is the families too. This is their graduation, and I don't know if we can sort of get some feedback that way. But again, my only hesitation is if we don't do anything now, if we don't celebrate now, that we end up with nothing.
Yeah, Just to add in a few points, thank you to committee members and great job, Abby and Abby. To speak to a couple of the quick points, certainly about the changing dynamics of the situation. Just this past weekend, RIDE released some guidelines around high school graduations. And they stated pretty clearly that they don't expect high schools to be able to have large gatherings for their graduations through the end of the summer. There might be some slight increase, maybe, in terms of how many people, but certainly not the large typical graduation. And Ms. Polish, to your point about the survey, it's a great idea. We actually did release a survey to the seniors a week and a half ago or so, and it was actually really informative because it gave us some great feedback around essentially the students want as close to a normal graduation as possible, of course, but one feedback that came back was they wanted to do it at the high school if possible. And again, as many people as they can get there was part of their demands. And to your last point, one of the main reasons we're thinking about the June is that point about potentially losing students, or we don't want to place a student or a family in a position of having to make a decision between, well, do I go to my child's or graduation and some other, whether it's college, university, or event that could potentially have a conflict later in the summer.
Chris, I think that's a good point that you brought up there, that as much as we want to do things, we really are under the restrictions placed upon us by the state and by RIDE, that we are under that public umbrella. And as much as, I think someone just, I think it was just announced the other night that the FTR is being, our financial town referendum is being pushed off, way off. And there were a lot of people that were really upset about that. But I think you're right. I think we have to remember that, there are guidelines and restrictions that we have that have nothing to do with us, that RIDE or the governor's office or the town council president who has a lot of control in a state of emergency, we would need to get any sign off there. But yeah, I like the idea of another survey, but all good points, and I certainly understand this is unprecedented. We don't have all the answers. That's why we, over a month ago, we threw this out there and asked people to make comments.
Can I also, oh, sorry.
You got it.
Also, can I just speak on like two more things that we just want to get out there? We also have another idea for graduation where it could be more of like a drive-in style. And we were thinking it could either be in Pardon Gray in Tiverton, where it's a huge open space. It can be at the Glen Park or the Glen Manor in Portsmouth, or it can be at the our drive-in that we have in North Smithfield. But basically, the students and their parents in their car go to the drive-in or the open space or wherever we're having it. We can park their car, and then we could stream like the graduation like through the radio station, so it can be completely safe, and the parents and everybody would be listening through their cars. And we could have a like semi-traditional graduation, and everybody could be together, but everybody would just be in their cars. And then as the graduates would have to walk the stage, they could just get out of their car, walk the stage, get their diploma, and then walk back. But everybody could hear it, and everybody could see it, and everybody could just be together. And I think that's something that we really want to enforce, is that we never got a last day of school. We never got a last hurrah together. Like the last day of school just ended of us going home thinking that we had a spring vacation early, and nobody knew to say bye to each other or anything. It kind of just ended, and we were really blindsided. So I think we want to really enforce that the class, as as it is, but we'd like to try to stay together and have a graduation where we could all be together. And I know that we can't go against the governor or we can't go against the ride guidelines, but I think that the drive-in idea is really unique. And I think that it could potentially be an extremely safe option. And another thing I just want to throw out there that doesn't have to do with graduation is we could have a senior week. It could be the week leading up to graduation, and we could have like the award ceremony that we are supposed to have. We could have a potential prom if it was in August. We could do that. If that was possible, we have ideas for an alternative prom, and we could do maybe like a cookout to honor the seniors, so we could all get together. And I know it all focuses on what Gina, our governor, has to say, and we obviously can't do it if the restrictions are still there. But I think that a senior week to just honor the seniors, and we could come up with some really unique ideas and some unique days. I know that some other schools are already doing this, like Old Rochester and Somerset Berkeley. So I just wanted to put that out there too, along with the drive-in graduation idea.
We're just really looking for closure as a class. Like Abby said, we never had a last day, a last moment together. And while we like the idea with Mr. Ashley and Dr. Sanchioni, it was like a great idea with the cars and everything, safety wise. But the part where after we had heard about the idea, we brought it to the other student council members, the reps, and the other officers, and we wanted to know what they thought, because they are a part of our council. We represent the student body, and we did also bring the idea to other fellow classmates that weren't necessarily in student council, just so we could get like a wide opinion on everything. And it mostly came back that we really wanted to see each other across the stage. While Mr. Ashley's idea would stream it, it's not the same as seeing your friend walk across the stage and get their diploma and everything like that. It's just, and I know we are in unprecedented times. Obviously we can't have what we wanted. It's just not going to be plausible for this year with the traditional graduation style. But I think that with the Parting Gray idea, they have always had cars park on the fields for Parting Gray Day. I don't think they would ever have a problem with us parking there.
Were you thinking that in June, or what were you thinking for timing for that, Abby?
I think it could work in June or August, to be honest with you. It would still withstand the guidelines, the ride guidelines and the governor's. And I think that it would work in either situation. That was our plan B to fall back on. Like I said, the location one on the football field was wishful thinking. But the Parting Gray Day, I think it would, or just Parting Gray Field, I think it would really work out in everyone's favor, where we would still be able to record it and everything, because they do at Parting Gray Day have the live band. So I know they have some way to hook up speakers or something like that, and we would be able to record and get a stage out there. Again, parents would be willing to help put a stage, and we as students would help as well. So we're really just looking for something that the class agrees on and that abides by the safety guidelines that can give us a good end to our 13 years at Tiverton.
Okay, thank you.
Just for the committee, be aware, Parting Gray is private property that's owned by the land trust, not the town.
Yes.
Not saying they wouldn't give permission, but that is private property.
It is private property.
Yeah. Well,
there are other locations that we could do it too.
Yeah, we could also do the Glen Fields in Portsmouth that Abby was talking.
Or
Yeah.
that drive.
I think if we're going to have a Tiverton graduation, I like the idea of trying to have it in Tiverton. I don't think it would be an issue at all to ask the land trust for permission if we went in that direction. They're a great group, but.
Yeah.
One thing we do have is some pretty big fields, even, at the, the lower field and the old football field at the high school. So I don't think space is going to be necessarily the issue.
I don't think you can bring the cars there. Derek.
Well, it's the cars.
So
Having a lot of cars.
I am going to recognize Mrs. Black. Yes, Sally.
Okay, so I was just going to say that,
Can you put her closer, Jerry? I can't
Yep.
hear.
yeah, I appreciate the students coming in and giving their thoughts. We always want that. But I agree with Mrs. Polish in a way, because I want to get it done in June, just in case the rules change again, because we don't know what's going to happen. And I was happy to see it opening up gradually and gradually. And so we have enough space, as we say, on the Tiverton High School property to work it out. And I think they came out with a really good idea. And I think we can, as you said, have another questionnaire and work it out, everybody with their input. But because people might miss out leaving for the service or leaving to athletics or different things, we should probably try to have it in June, I think, whichever way we do go with it. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Barnworth, it looks like you had something else.
I do have one more question, and I don't know if anyone knows this answer off the top of their head. How many parking spaces are in the the student parking lot?
A couple hundred anyway.
Yeah, it's a few hundred total, but one of the parts we've already looked at is part of the lot would be designated for parking, and another part of the lot would be designated for slowly moving vehicles as the graduates are dropped off.
So Diane, you're thinking the drive-in idea in the student parking lot.
Right, with an alternative of the initial, if weather is an issue, the original idea of having the students go through the gym as you described. I don't know, could you just set up the stage in the lot and call the students up with their families one at a time to the stage while everyone else remains in their vehicles?
I think that's sort of what they're planning.
So is the only difference that you're proposing, Diane, is that instead of going through the gym, something would be set up outside somewhere near the parking lot?
Weather permitting, of course.
Yes.
Right? In a downpour, I don't think that works.
What I like about going through the gym is that the plan that we've seen is to go through the gym, do the picture, get the diploma, exit through to the backstage area and deposit their gowns.
Oh, true.
I think that's just a good organizational piece. I like that idea, because otherwise you could be chasing down gowns all summer or maybe never get them back. But I just felt that everything was very organized. They were going to walk through, they were going to have a chance for pictures. The DJ was playing, and I understand where the girls are coming from. But graduation is in June. I mean, I don't know. I'm afraid we'll lose kids over the summer. When I say lose kids, I mean, once you're gone from the school, kids move on to different lives sometimes, like preparing for college or jobs or the military. And how many, I don't know. It is totally unprecedented. We've never been through anything like this. But would we get a good number to return? I don't know. It's very difficult.
Abby's, what about the Diane's idea, if we could do it at the high school in the parking lot?
I think that would be a perfectly viable idea. I was also thinking, because the student lot is right near the flagpole and we have that grass area, we could set up a stage on the grass area over there. And then as students get their diploma, get off the stage, they could go back into door 6, I believe, into the area or into the near the music hallway. And that's where they could return their gowns. And then that would also give them the chance to have like the photo op moment in the courtyard, the senior courtyard, with their family.
I mean, it would be people would have to understand it would be a slow moving graduation, because you could only have literally one group, kind of going and doing it at a time, and because we'd have to keep social distancing. But I'm sure we could get a few officers to help with I don't know. What do you think, Peter and Chris? My only concern is if it does rain, going through the gym won't really work, because now you have 128 cars sitting there waiting to go through the gym, and that is going to take a while, and people would just need to understand that if it rained, because I think you were going to stagger the times, right, with the other, right? So
Yeah.
you were going to do A through C for whatever, and or A through E for an hour, and then you were going to do F through whatever. And if everybody's there and it ends up, I mean, I guess we could make the call early, like we would do for the football field. If we could try to do the drive-in and try to work that out, and if it looks like it's going to rain, then we just make the call that we can't do it that way. I mean, I don't know. You guys have been working on this, so I don't know if pivoting at this point could we do the idea of having all the cars in an assigned spot and a stage outside?
Yeah, just briefly on that. So part of the challenge or difference in planning this year as opposed to prior is the parking logistics and the timing. You're absolutely right that in prior years, rain versus no rain, it doesn't going to change where people park, right? How they assemble. In this case, we're already looking at how long is it going to take each graduate, kind of move through the gym. How would the cars move? What would be the approximate amount of time for each car? And so we want to try to maximize the amount of time for students to be recognized while not having parents and families and students, sitting for hours on end in the parking lot.
So we do have other parking lots available to us, because we have the road between the high school and the middle school, and we also have Ranger pretty close. So I don't know, you could kind of.
Well, I think you'd have to limit it to family. I think you'd have to really limit it to family only.
I agree with that. So
you'd have to have the parking lot partitioned off, and they'd have to have a ticket to get in. I mean, it wouldn't just be everybody come and park. It would be just like the gym. And instead of coming in the gym with your tickets, you're coming into the parking lot with your ticket. I mean, it would have to be exactly the same way. It had to be very limited. We'd have to hold it, and then everybody would have to sit there. They'd have to stay throughout the whole graduation. And then when we were done, we would have to, then we open it up and they'd leave. I mean, there could be no coming and going in between. It'd be just like
Right.
And I think one thing we need to remember too is no matter what the final plan ends up being, it will be video recorded.
Yeah.
And that will always be available for folks to watch even beyond that date. I know I still occasionally take a trip back down memory lane on Tiverton videos myself.
But I think Abby's, I'm sorry, I keep calling you Abby's. Did people do that to you a lot? I think one of the things that I think I'm hearing that you like about the Pardon Gray idea is you're just all there together watching, even if you can't sit next to each other, even if you can't. I do wonder though, if people are parked that close together and people start rolling down windows, now you've got, do we have social distancing issues because you've got cars literally parked right next to each other and they're rolling down windows to cheer, and so now I don't know how that works for social distancing. I don't know if we'd sort of need to have that conversation with some medical professionals that I don't know, Dr. Larkin, is that far enough?
So
anyway, but I don't know. I don't know if we want to put these two options out there and kind of see what the Survey Monkey says. I don't know, or if.
So yeah, we're very much into the logistics, and maybe that should be left to others to plan. I'm going to say three things, and then I want to open it up to questions from the public or comments. One is, of course, this is unprecedented, and I don't think any of us can predict what's going to happen. I've certainly learned the latter part. Second is that, our aspiration is always going to be to fulfill your aspirations as closely as we possibly can for this, big pivotal event in your life. And then the third is I'm kind of getting the sense that maybe we haven't asked the question, despite the survey, that Abby and Abby seem to be posing to us, which is, would the wishes of the class and their families be to sort of go with a sure thing, or sort of a sure thing in June versus waiting longer in order to perhaps be less restrictive in terms of the social distancing that we have to observe. And that is certainly a roll of the dice, and maybe that's the question that needs to be asked that wasn't necessarily asked, and perhaps the plans need to be tweaked or modified on the basis of that. But before we go any further, what I'd like to do is Delcourt can let us know if there are questions from the public feed.
So in the essence of time, we have well over 271 comments specific to in favor of a postponement. We also have one comment specific to the weather being a concern, and 87 comments specific to the weather not being a concern, and that these students just simply would get or would want to graduate even in the rain. We do have 3 comments that Nick Forcier gave us, that Abby Forcier is a very smart class president. So we also have 31 in favor of Ms. Poland's cookout idea. And we have 16 and several more, as I have been reading, have been coming in highly in favor of or comments specific to irrelevant of the hours that it will take. They want to, they would sit there for 10 hours, in other words, in order to see each other graduate. So time wasn't a concern for them. And we have hit well over 400 comments total. So as you can understand, in the essence of time, I'm attempting. And may I just say that the students are being extremely respectful. I'm very impressed with their comments and their ideas. And I do believe that there is a significant amount that are looking for another survey to be done. And I would just also recommend that the survey be done for parents as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'm going to make a suggestion, which is Mr. Ashley and Abby and Ms. Forcier and Ms. Poland, you acquitted yourselves well. My suggestion is that we ask you guys to go back and look at this and maybe do another survey and see what the results you get are, and see, if you want to try and do a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. I'm personally in my life, I'm about plan G, so it's always good to have lots of plans. I don't know if anybody else.
Dr. Larkin?
Yep.
Could I suggest, because I know when Abby and Abby wrote us, they were a little concerned about just the communication, and okay, they talk to Chris and Chris talks to Peter and Peter talks to us. If maybe for the sake of expediency, because we are only about a month out, if with Principal Ashley and putting together the survey and Abby and Abby, and if we could loop in Dr. Sanchioni and perhaps a school committee member, I'm happy to help. I'm happy to sit in on those. I just want to be able to move things along as quickly as we can, so that because we're really up against time, and I think we can do this with a district survey, I don't think we necessarily have to, I don't think Chris has to do it. I think we can do a district survey. We can send it out district-wide. And I think, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can identify with a district survey who's a graduate and who's a graduate parent?
We sure can, yes.
Okay. So I just, for the sake of expediency, because we really are sort of we have a month now.
Yep.
To sort of make some decisions. And if it gets postponed, it's fine. But if we're going to do something on June 5th, then, so I guess my recommendation would be to loop in at a minimum, Dr. Sanquioni, but I would be happy as a school committee member to try to, sit in and sort of craft the survey as well, because I do think to Abby and Abby's point that it needs to be rather quick communication and rather quick action.
Yep. That sounds good to me. Anybody else on the committee have any thoughts about that plan? Just sort of asking Deb to work with the president, vice president, superintendent, and principal. Sort of.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
No, I think that'll help move it along.
Yep. Okay. Elaine, any thoughts?
No, nope, all set.
Dr. Sanquioni, you okay with that?
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Astley?
Yes, yeah, all set.
And I do appreciate all the public's interest in this as well. Not sure we've seen quite that kind of a response before. How many? Was over 400, you said? Julie?
We are well over 400, and we have well over 276 viewers, which we average about 11. So there is quite a public presence there.
Perhaps we should have all of our meetings via Zoom and discuss graduation at all of them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, Ms. Forcier, Ms. Poland, thank you very much for coming and presenting to us. And I'm sure we'll hear more from both of you in the near future and in the distant future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for letting us speak and letting us speak for the class and the
And
students.
thank you for doing a great job at it too, ladies.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very much for coming.
Okay. So, Dr. Sanquioni, I think we're up to 8th grade promotion, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully this one will go a little smoother. I know Principal Craven's put a lot of thought into this, and you also.
We're ready for you, Sue.
Okay, so I sent the promotion proposal to Dr. Sanquioni, and I believe all of you have received it. I met with parents of 8th graders, and I met with the 8th grade teachers, and we came up with a drive-through promotion ceremony. So virtual programs will be created. Each family will have a designated time slot. Vehicles will be directed to drive to the middle school parking lot and loop around to the parent drop-off area. Teachers and administration, and along with school committee members, will be there. Appropriate social distancing guidelines will be followed. PTO is willing to decorate the sidewalk area. I spoke with them today. They're thinking of balloon archways as the cars drive through and underneath. Music will be playing. And at the end of the line, I'll be there and I will hand to the students their promotion certificates and a packet.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to open the to questions from the committee. Sally, you want to go first this time?
No, it sounds good. And you have input from the parents and everybody, students and all, teachers.
I can't hear Sally, I'm sorry.
No, I said it sounds like you had input from the teachers and the parents and the students. It sounds like a nice ceremony.
Yeah. I'm also, the teachers are willing to put together a video message to all of the students. So they've been sending me clips already. And that way we can send that off with our 8th grade students as well.
Very nice.
Great. Diane, questions?
No, thank you.
Welcome.
Elaine?
No, very well put together.
Deb?
All set. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Delcourt, any questions or comments from the public? 500, 600?
There are no comments regarding this particular subject matter at this time. Thank you very much.
Good to be an 8th grade principal.
Yeah. All right, well, that was easy. All right, again, thank you very much for your
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
thoughtfulness and creativity.
You're welcome.
All right. Now we're on to the revised school calendar.
Yes.
Can I, oh, I guess, never mind. It's not on the agenda. I was going to ask about grade 4, but never mind. Send us what you're going to be doing, I guess, elementary principals. Thank you. I was just curious.
No, Mr. Cow, Mr. Cow. Okay. All right, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, RIDE continues to adjust the school calendar. I told you I'd bring you an update every time we knew something. This will be the final one for the year. So I want to let you know that tomorrow is a professional development day for our teachers, and we put this calendar out there for our students and staff. So you're getting it now, obviously, because of the meeting. The 15th of May will be a non-work day. So everyone's off that day, students, staff, and so forth. The 20th of May will be a professional development day for our staff. June 1st will be a professional development day. And then Tiverton hits our 180th day on June 10th. So that will be our last day of school. And that was always on our calendar. So there were 4 additional days added, 3 for professional development, 1 for a day off. That's RIDE's final iteration of the 2019-20 school year. So I'm bringing you up to date, and that's how we will close the school year.
Is it safe to say that we're going to get through a whole year without a snow day? I mean, on the bright side of things.
Snow forecast tomorrow.
Yeah. I think this is the first year in history that parents are going to welcome the end of school.
Oh, most definitely.
Right, or I should say our teachers/parents. Okay. And last, I think, any other questions from the committee?
No, thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public, Mrs. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And then we are on to Q4 grading procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we put together some grading alternatives for this Q4 as a result of distance learnings. I know that the principals work closely with their staffs to help develop this. A lot of feedback and input was put into it. You see the elementary, middle, and high school in the document we provided you. So I'm going to go in that order. I'm going to ask Principal Cabral to talk about the elementary plan.
Good evening. The elementary schools are carefully considered the extraordinary nature of our current situation as it applies to distance learning. We have decided to implement, with your approval, an alternate grading system for K-4 students for spring 4 this year. We're proposing that we all grade K-4 with a C for consistently, an S for sometimes, and a U for unable to determine a grade. But we'll also put a comment on the report cards indicating that the 4th term this year was solely based on distant learning, and we will look for your approval.
Okay.
You want to go through all 3 grade levels before you go to approval, Mr. Chairman?
Yep, sure.
Okay.
Can I ask Mr. Cabral one question?
Sure.
How is this different from the normal grading system?
Well, our normal grading system is a rubric, like 4 to 1, and it's based on participation grades. This is more based on student participation and students trying. So it's just a one-term grade. It's based on strictly distant learning, where we're not sure of the participation and who is participating.
Thank you.
So you, sorry, Dr. Larkin?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you want to ask questions now or we're going to go through all 3 grade levels. I thought Peter wanted to go through all 3 grade levels, meaning middle school and high school. Is that right, Peter?
Committee's pleasure. We can take questions.
I think it's easier to ask the questions as we're on the grade.
All right. Ms. Palish, questions?
So what are they, Manny? C, S, and U?
Yeah, C, S, and U. So C is consistently, the student is engaged on a consistent basis. And S is sometimes, but they're not on a consistent basis, but they've been participating. And a U is unable to give a grade, just the student hasn't participated enough, or we haven't seen the student enough to give a grade for that fourth. term.
Okay, so this is solely based upon whether they were participating in the whatever Zoom calls,
Right. In the Zoom class meetings, live lessons, as well as the work completion that the teachers are giving each and every day.
Okay. Ms. Pavo?
No, thank you.
Okay. And Mrs. Black?
No, thank you. Thank you. Well,
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public, Mrs. Delcourt?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cabral.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to the middle school and I'll ask Principal Craven to address that system.
Thank you. Tiverton Middle School believes grades are an important component of teaching and learning, but we do recognize that we need to balance those beliefs against the fact that we need to be fair for students as they do not have full access to their teachers at this time. So for Q4, students at the middle school will continue to be graded numerically in the ranges of A, B, and C. And students who fall below the grade of a 65 will receive a P for passing. No student will fail Q4.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pavo, any questions?
No,
Ms. Palish?
So for your kids that need grades or grades are determined for placement in certain classes, both at the middle school and at the high school, how, are you just ignoring fourth quarter and using the 3? How are you going to do that?
No, for the pre-algebra, we will continue to grade as we need to because it is for placement for Algebra 1.
Okay.
Good, that's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Ms. Farnworth?
No, I think I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, and Mrs. Black?
no, I have the same question as Deb. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Ms. Craven.
Thank you.
Okay, Principal Ashley will talk about the high school.
Yes, thank you. So at the high school, we recognize that students and parents still want to have numeric grades as we usually do, thinking about students' final transcripts in colleges and universities after graduating Tiverton High School. We also recognize obviously distance learning is not the same circumstances as when they're in the building. So we're going to keep numeric letter grades as we usually do, but we are granting a waiving of all final exams. So students would not have final exams. Any student, and it's rare, but for any student who would be below a 55, the lowest score that that student can receive in a course for the fourth quarter is a 55. And then, moving up from there accordingly.
Okay. Mrs. Black, questions?
Mr. Ashley, didn't you have something on there about not being held back or something at the bottom, remember?
Did you get that, Chris?
Yeah, I heard about not being held back, and that's to that speak about the 55. So that that's us drawing that balance of recognizing that distance learning is obviously a different context than traditional.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So every student will get promoted. Is that how I read that or understand that?
Oh, yes. So in terms of grades, yes, all students will get promoted. And then we look at if there's a particular plan needed for a student, we would work with that student in favor.
Got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pavo?
all set.
Mrs. Palish?
Nope, all set. Thank you.
And Mrs. Farnworth?
I'm imagining there's going to be a lot of heel clicking for no finals. And I think it's the right decision. I don't have any other comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Ms. Delcourt, any questions or comments from the public?
None at this time regarding this matter.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Can I have a go back real quick?
Sure.
Are we going to be, and I think we may have already discussed this at a previous meeting. The grading for senior project, is that changing?
It is. So we are keeping the grade, keeping a grade, numeric grade for senior project, but we lowered the passing rate to a 65, meaning, opened up the window for passing. And we have in previous years, there's a rubric associated for the presentation. We've significantly modified that rubric so that it focuses on the core parts that the students had done really prior to distance learning. And we're going to have a small groups of faculty members grade each presentation to still have that community-based assessment, but without the external members that we would usually invite in.
That was very fair.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. There are no other questions from the committee or the public. We are on to.
Hang on.
Sorry, one question did just come in just now from a Christina Marley. She's specifically asking, does that mean that the middle school report cards will remain the same?
I'm sorry, Julie, I can't hear you. Can you repeat that, please?
So sorry, yes. So the question is, does that mean that the middle school report cards will remain the same?
Does that mean the middle school report cards will remain the same, Sue?
Yes, with the exception of the alternate grading system, they'll still get report cards.
Okay. Any other questions from the public?
None on this subject matter.
Okay, thank you. Next is
Dr. Larkin, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second? And this is the approval of the grading procedure?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because we don't need to approve anything else yet. Okay.
I don't know. We need to approve the school calendar as well.
Oh, that's dictated by RIDE, isn't it?
But you may recall at a previous meeting, you
Yeah.
had given me the opportunity to continue to modify the calendar based on RIDE's
Yeah.
recommendations.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So the motion is to approve the Q4 grading procedure. Any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor, Ms. Farnworth,
Yes.
Ms. Palish,
Yes.
Ms. Pavo,
Yes.
Ms. Black,
Yes.
and I vote yes, 5-0. Thank you very much, and thank you, as always, to all our administrators, teachers, and teacher-parent partners. Have we asked for any grades from the parents? They should be able to assign them, right? I'm thinking about doing a written evaluation at the very least of my kids. All right, so now we're on to new business. 6, the preschool program. Dr. Stanchioni?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you may recall, I put this under the categories of making lemonade out of lemons, excuse me. You may recall, unfortunately, as a result of our budget situation, we're laying off some teachers across the board. Again, because of that budget situation, is when we analyzed our building and we analyzed maybe creating opportunity to retain some of our staff. One of the things we came up with, well, we're educators, we do this job effectively. Why don't we start our own preschool? And so we toyed around with that idea because we have space in our buildings now to do so. And we'd like to present to you a tuition preschool program that the Tiverton Public Schools would like to offer the community of Tiverton. I'm going to have Sarah Krager present this to you. Sarah runs the special ed preschool for us, so she was the ideal person to research this and bring it to fruition for us. I want to be clear though, this isn't a special ed program. This is an open program for all members of the Tiverton community if they would like to consider this as an option for preschool education. So with that being said, Sarah?
Thank you, Dr. Sanquioni. And nice to see everybody, and I'm glad everyone's healthy. Yeah, like Dr. Sanquioni said, I usually present with a director of special education hat on, but today I am presenting as an all kids agenda, and I'm happy to do so. I'm just going to share a brief presentation with you as we go over the possibility of the Tiverton pre-kindergarten program. And I'm just going to ask, can everybody see that screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Great.
Yes.
Like Dr. Sanquioni said, we did really see the unfortunate event of having to lay off some of our teachers as an opportunity. And it's so great to work with an administration team that often looks at an obstacle and how we can use it as an opportunity. So here I just have a little background about why we want to start a pre-kindergarten program. We would be excited to bring students into our schools earlier than kindergarten and have them become part of the Tiverton Public School community. Together with Ms. Delcourt, we put out a survey to our families in Tiverton, and we were really excited to get a response of 85 families responded. And that happened pretty quickly. And this is really specific to an age group of 4 years old and 4 to 5 years old. So it is a pretty good rate of response. When we looked at that, we asked questions about how many days a week you would like your child to attend a pre-kindergarten program. And again, it's for students who are 4 years old. And we got an overwhelming response of 5 days, which is great because pre-kindergarten, we really are preparing our students for a full day of kindergarten and 5 days. One of the other questions we asked was what kind of pre-kindergarten program would be best for your child? Would it be a full day, a morning, or a PM? And again, along with the 5 days a week, we got an overwhelming response of a full day. So it's really nice to see that this specific age group and parents of this age group are looking for that full day program. Some of the regulatory considerations, just running a pre-K program, you can see there, and these are from the Department of Ed. You have to be 4 years old by September 1st. There's a strict ratio of 1 adult to 10 students, and also a strict maximum group size of 20 students in a classroom. Staffing for a pre-kindergarten program in a public school setting does have to have an administrator. We have a principal on site at Pecasset. An education coordinator and teacher can be an early childhood teacher. That teacher has to have RIDE certification, so that teacher would sort of play 2 roles for us in our pre-K program. Teacher assistant full-time, that teacher assistant has to have the same qualifications as teacher assistants working in our schools already, and an on-site nurse. And we have a full-time school nurse teacher at Pecasset. So we really have the full staffing there at Pecasset. So the schedules that we are proposing is, along with the survey results, is to hold a Monday through Friday program. We will be following the Tiverton Public School calendar for this. I put with some alterations because we do have some PD days on Wednesdays. That may be something that the preschool won't do because we may be running our own kind of PD for that teacher and that crew. So with some alterations, but definitely following the Tiverton Public School calendar. When we look at the full day, again, that was sort of the overwhelming response. We do want to look at students accessing the breakfast and lunch program that's already at Pecasset. It would include a rest time. And again, that is part of the regulatory considerations for a full day pre-K. And then we would like to offer students who are there full day an option that in conjunction with the Early Risers program that is already up and running. We would look at half days as well, knowing that this was part of the responses we received. And we would look, again, we would offer half day, but it would still be Monday through Friday. We'd have a morning session, and we'd run that also in conjunction with early risers, and then a PM section. I have their times to be determined. It would be about the same hours of the school day, but we do want to be cautious about students coming when the buses are arriving, dropping kids off or picking kids up. So we would run drop off or pick up either before or after the buses come. And then when we look at tuition, this was also part of our survey, and the question we asked is how much would you consider paying for a pre-K program, and how much are you paying now? We also looked at the amount of tuition that some of the Tiverton preschool, the private pre-K programs also have. Looking at all of those results and taking all into consideration, we're looking at right now starting out a full day at $175 a week and a half day at $110. So that is, like I said, sorry.
You could,
So that's
nice job.
thank you. Brief presentation. Certainly any questions, please shoot.
Okay, I'm gonna ask.
I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Sarah, would these students not use our transportation company? Would parents be responsible for drop off and pickup?
Yes, parents would be responsible for drop off and pick up to the program.
Okay, thank you.
And we're doing it at we said Picasset. You know, I think I started out the presentation by saying opportunities. I think we still have a lot of opportunities. We are starting this out at Picasset. We'd like to start it out at Picasset with one classroom, but certainly upon its success, we would love to you know, expand this to other schools, to the other two elementary schools as well eventually.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. So for this,
yep, go ahead, Elaine.
it would be one school only, just
Yes.
Picasset school.
Yes, to start that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mrs.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Farnworth, any questions?
I have a few. The current preschool class at Picasset, will that remain in place?
Yes, we have a preschool class at Picasset, and we also have one at Ranger. Those are integrated programs. Those would still remain in place.
And for those students who are not associated with special ed in those classes, do they pay?
They do. Our peer models pay a tuition in the current preschool classes.
And would it be identical to this?
It is close, but it's not the same. It's not identical.
So tell me.
Our program is the pre-K program that is currently in place is 4 days. So it's $20 a day.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been hearing for the last 3 years how stuffed our elementary schools are. They're at capacity. We can't handle another kid. We're building a gazillion houses in town. We're going to bring in a whole bunch of new students. How is it we now have capacity at Picasset for this?
So I'll take that, Diane. So it's just a result of the budget. And as you may recall in our budget presentation on the third tier of cuts, we had to eliminate 2 elementary positions. So eliminating those positions means that class size is going to creep up a little bit at some of our schools, but it opens up the classroom space, the physical space. And so with that space, you know, came the idea, well, how can we use that space? And also, how can then we maybe offer a position back to a teacher who might lose their job and maybe a paraprofessional who's going to lose their job? So student population isn't decreasing, it's just the physical space is available.
Okay. The education coordinator position, it looks as though you will have this in addition to a teacher. Will this person be a teacher as well?
Yes, the teacher would play both roles, teacher and coordinator.
Okay. I can't think of my last question. I'll yield for now.
Okay. Mrs. Black, any questions for Ms. Krager?
Mrs. Craig, what the printout I have is the tuition was 200 for full day, and then it went down to 175. You said.
Yes, we looked a little bit further into some of the responses we received, Ms. Pavo. So we did adjust that.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mrs. Palish?
So the thinking is starting this in the fall?
Yes, we would like to start this in the fall. So we would like to, if all goes well, we would like to start advertising this for our families.
I will tell you that I'm hesitant about that, and this is why. Because we have so many unknowns coming in the fall. We're hearing about social distancing for our kids. We're hearing about smaller classes for our kids. We're hearing about busing might change, lunch might change, class sizes may need to change. So I am hesitant to start a new program in the fall, given the COVID-19 issues of us not really knowing what the impacts are going to be on those classrooms, the busing. I just think there's a lot of unknowns. I think it's a great program, but I am hesitant about starting something new up in September with so many unknowns still out there because of COVID-19.
Yeah, but I think I could address that to some extent and say that, certainly we would put the same precautions in with this program as we would across the school. This actually might give us a little more latitude because there's no transportation. It's a self-contained class. We can spread them out for lunch much easier and control this group probably easier than any other class in the school. And again, I would just say, the antithesis behind this, or the idea is, we have the opportunity now to maybe bring back a couple people who could be unemployed. And that, I don't want that to be lost on people, especially in this time when so many people have lost their jobs. We could help out a few of our employees and provide a great educational service for young students. It's something to consider.
Oh, absolutely. And I get that. But my concern is if we find that we need even more space and we end up needing this space because of the social distancing and just the issues we're going to find with COVID-19, to Diane's point, I worry that we're not going to have the space. I mean, outside of COVID-19, yeah, it's a slam dunk. Bring people back, employ them. Great program. I'm sure there's a need out there. Like I said, my only hesitation is us not knowing the impact of the fall on our buildings and to start something new without knowing that. But I certainly think that the program is a good one.
Okay, any other questions from the committee?
I do think that Deb's concern is actually quite valid. I hadn't thought about that, but those rumors are abound right now that perhaps we are going to need more space, even outside of our current budget situation because of COVID-19 and social distancing. I'm not sure it's the right time for us to be introducing more children into the school.
I would say to the committee that at the very least, perhaps let us proceed with caution and see how this thing plays out. Begin the process, see if we first of all have enough interest in the community to run this, and then continue to keep you informed. And before we execute it, we certainly could come back and speak with you. Again, I would say that there's a lot of advantages of doing this.
I
And I think similar to how we have handled distance learning and all the adaptations that we've had to make, we would, obviously do the same in September with this program, should we have to make those changes.
when do you think it would be necessary to either commit to this or realize other things were going to prevent it from happening?
The commitment piece, I think we need to do that as soon as possible. Like I said, I know families may have already started to look at what they may be doing with their 4-year-olds next year or planning to do so. So I'd like to get that out to our families as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go forward and say, oh, we can pull it later and have families count on us and then decide later that, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, I think we either need to kind of commit and go forward, or we need to be cautious and say, not now. I mean, maybe it's something we could do in, next year, but I would hate for families to rely on us and say that's what they're going to do, and then us change our mind in August and they have to scramble.
I think, Deb, that while I understand, sort of your points. If social distancing or going back to school in September is going to such a stress on the system that having one extra classroom isn't going to make a difference. And I don't think actually changing class sizes dramatically is going to be possible for any school district, including ours. We're probably going to be in a better position than most. And so I think it is okay to proceed with caution and to, commit to it now, recognizing that there are all kinds of unknown variables right now that, will change a lot of our thinking or not. And this is I think a good opportunity as well as a good service to the community. So I'm in favor of proceeding with it. Any other questions from the committee before I open it up to any from the public?
I have one more question.
Sure.
Oh.
Go ahead, Diane.
On the financial side, can anyone tell me what we are currently charging for early risers? I forget how much that program was charging.
It looks like Ms. Donnelly Roach is going to answer that.
While Amy's looking that up, I'm assuming that the cost that Amy has done and the cost, and not Amy Donnelly Roche, our other Amy, has done cost analysis, and the pricing will that it'll at least cover the cost.
Ooh, that's exactly where I was going to, Deb.
Right, because we haven't seen any cost analysis.
So in full transparency, it's not going to cover the full cost. And I think that's part of the trade-off of offering an excellent educational program and retaining two people about to lose their job. Can we fit it into our budget? Absolutely. And what the delta is going to be, it's going to be less than $10,000.
Well, can we fit it into a budget that's already in a deficit spending situation? So we're going to overspend by another 10,000 to add this.
No, there's modifications we can make to our existing budget. And again, I just continue to reiterate, if we save two people's jobs, we're not paying that unemployment. There's savings there then, and there's savings in other areas.
Okay. while Amy Roach is looking for that information, Mrs. Delcourt, any questions or comments from the public?
Yes, Chairman Larkin, there is. Before I read them off, I would just like to remind the adults on the chat that we do have students that are paying attention, and I speak on behalf of my children and the other children that are paying attention, our students, to be mindful of the language that you use, and I thank you and appreciate that effort in advance. That said, Renee Bond would like to ask, would this only be at Picasset, and would it be for only 20 students?
Would it only be at Picasset? And what was the second part?
And will it only be for 20 students?
For 20 students.
20 students would be the max amount of students we have in that program. And yes, it would only be at Picasset this year.
Okay. Anything?
The next question is from Melissa, and she asks, how would these hours work with a parent that would be working from 9 to 5?
Yeah, we did think about that a little bit, that I understand that concern, and we are trying to address that with the Early Risers program on the earlier side of the day. But it would end around the same time Picasset school ends.
And I just reiterate, it's a choice for parents, right? There's many options out there in the community, and this just becomes one choice. If it works for certain families, it does, and if it doesn't, for others.
Right.
Another question came from, looks like Nancy, and she's asking, do you serve all special education students?
I'm sorry, Julie, I just couldn't hear that.
Julius, work on that speaker.
Sure thing. I apologize for my connection. I have Nancy who asks, will the new classroom be inclusive, and do you serve all special education students?
The program would be for all students. So students with, if they have IEPs, we would service them in that program if that's where the parents chose for them to attend. It depends on a student's individual education plan as far as services. So we would look at that and try to include those services in the program.
Okay, and Nancy did ask, what is the classroom makeup?
4-year-olds. Pretty simple. All 4-year-olds.
Okay, and I apologize, the conversation is very lengthy, so I'm looking for questions. Please forgive me. So an individual wanted to know, will you be asking parents to pay for early risers as well?
Yes, that would just align with the early risers, what they have for that tuition.
And I believe the last question is this a lottery system? How do you choose those 20 students if more than 20 students signed up?
Well, that would be a great problem to have if more than 20 students signed up for that. I'd have to get back to that, the question. Would it be lottery? I think lottery could be considered, but we'd have to discuss how we would handle that if more than 20 students are interested in the program. Good question.
And the next question is, does the teacher, and I'm sorry that every time someone comments, my screen jumps, so I apologize if I get derailed. Does this teacher have to be certified in order to have this position?
Yes, they have to have RIDE certification as an early childhood teacher.
Okay, so Amy Dolly Roach looks like is responding.
Yes, I'm happy to address that issue. Early risers current rates for 2019-2020 are adjusted depending on how many days per week our families opt to participate. We have early risers right now at Ranger School and Picasset, as you may know. It's a before school program. 5 days a week is $60 a week for participation, and you can come in quite early to participate in that program, 7:15, and your student receives breakfast included in that program. 4 days a week is $13, 3 days a week is $14 a day, and 1 or 2 days a week is $15 at this time. Those rates were set in October.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, any other questions from the committee?
Dr. Walker.
Yes, Mrs. Black.
So I understand Deb's concern very much so, but I also know that this is a wonderful program for the community. And if we can bring people back and they don't lose their job, that's very important. And they're trained and they're certified and ready to go. And so I think Dr. Sanchioni can work with RIDE on the social distance and all the things we're going to have to do. We'll find out about those. And I'm sure that they can handle it. I would like to try this out. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the committee or comments?
I do have one more. How is the distinction going to be made for children as to which class you're going to place them in? You already have it's a 3 to 4 year old preschool happening there. How is that going? I mean, if you have a family that wants to go for and I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, right? Pre-K, they're currently paying $20 a day. I mean, as a parent, I would automatically want to go for that program.
Yeah, so again, I think that's the half day, full day. That program is half day and it's 4 days a week. So we did try and offer something a little bit different for this program. So I do think some of that will be just parent choice. For students with IEPs who need that level of service, we would most likely recommend the more included pre-K program for that student. But again, it really depends on what their individual education plan outlines. So that's a little bit more personalized. But for those sending peer models to the program, I think it's just an option of the full day and then the 4 day a week versus the 5 day a week.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Going once, going twice. So, Peter, are you looking for a vote from us on this to approve it?
I am.
I thought so. Okay. So I'll ask for a motion to approve.
And just before you do that, Ms. Dr. Locke, if I could add one point, I was texting with Amy Roderick, and if you're worried about that delta between the cost and our budget, for unemployment alone, not paying for 2 people, we would easily save on that would shift right to the delta. So in essence, it would be a wash. So just see how that would make your decision.
Save the $10,000 in unemployment.
And it's less than 10,000.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Larkin, what we would pay over the course of, say, a year or the benefit period that those employees were entitled to, we would probably save more than $10,000.
Okay. That's certainly good to know. All right. Thank you. All right, good. So again, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the program.
So I make a motion to approve this new program.
Mrs. Black has made the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Pava is seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Right.
I'm going to vote no. I have as much as this is undoubtedly a great program, and I know we all need to move toward universal pre-K. I don't think this is the right time to do it. We have so much uncertainty over our budget. Right now, we have a list of staff that will be cut. We have an undetermined amount of staff that may be cut if our budget is cut any further than it's already been promised. Just so much unknown at this point budgetarily. Additionally, Mrs. Balash's point about social distancing, to me, is quite a very valid one. And if we're in a position where we're going to need every inch of space in these schools to accommodate the children already there, I just don't see where it would be responsible of us to bring in additional children. Not this year.
Okay, I'm gonna call the roll. Mrs. Farnworth, how do you vote?
No.
Mrs. Palish,
No.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes, yes.
Mrs. Black.
Yes.
I vote yes. So the vote is 3-4, 2 against. The motion passes. All right. I'm now going to ask for a motion to move into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42465A2, litigation, legal advice, personnel, teacher termination.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Palish,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Mrs. Black. Yes, so we are in executive session 5-0. We need to have a few minutes for some technical things to allow us into executive session.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Five to zero. Mrs. Black has made a motion to steal the minutes. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Black? Ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
And I vote yes, 5 to 0. So I'm going to report out on executive session. Legal advice was obtained and no votes were taken. We are now back in open session. 5 to 0 is Black made a motion to steal the minutes. Can I have a second? Okay.
Second.
Okay. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Black?
Does someone have the video playing? Why is it?
Yeah, it's a 20-second delay.
So whoever has the video playing, if you could just mute, thanks.
Okay. So this is a public hearing on determination of Amy Mullen. This is an open hearing at her request. It is not open to public comment or questions, however. It is being live streamed on YouTube. All right, Dr. Sanchioni.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Robinson, am I gonna open, or I thought you had an opening
Yeah,
statement?
I think just for by way of background, this resolution is before the committee to amend its prior resolution terminating Ms. Mullen based on certain based on certain rulings out of the Superior Court. And accordingly, we are requesting that through the superintendent's recommendation that you amend your prior action. So with that, I would turn it over to the superintendent and ask for him to make his recommendation to you, which is based upon the communication of April 15th. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Robinson. So to the members of the school committee, on the advice of legal counsel, I am recommending
Terminating this Mullen based on.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Can't have audio on.
Yeah.
To the members of the school committee, I'll start this again. On advice of legal counsel, I'm recommending that the school committee amend its vote of May 14th, 2020 to terminate Ms. Mullen effectively immediately. I am recommending that Ms. Mullen instead be suspended without pay for a period up to and including the end of the 2021 school year, then terminated at the end of the 2021 school year, for the cause set forth in my correspondence to Ms. Mullen dated April 15th, 2020.
Okay, so that is the resolution or the substance of the motion. Can I have such a motion made?
I fell. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. I'm not sure which of Ms. Acevedo or Mr. Lydaker or Ms. Florio, which of you would like to respond, or if you would like to respond?
I'll respond. And I'll be brief. You should reconsider the step you're taking tonight, terminating the Amy Mullen's pay. We believe that she should be reinstated, and she certainly should not be fired for speaking out, and that's exactly what happened. Your superintendent, if you look at his correspondence, never indicated that she was being fired for being a poor teacher, because he couldn't say that because she isn't. So that prompts the question, why was she fired? Your superintendent's correspondence pretty much lays it out. She was fired because she spoke out. She's a union president speaking on behalf of a very public matter about matters that affect her, also affect her members. The superintendent didn't like that, and he doesn't have to. but you can't fire her for that. And you can't stop her pay because of that. Her First Amendment protections don't end when you get off Route 24. You should think twice before you endorse the superintendent's recommendation, before you stop her pay. You know we're in federal court. We'll be at the labor board too. We believe we
So,
will
Mr.
prevail.
Whitaker, that's an issue that is not before this board at this time.
Well, what is before this board is whether you're going to stop her pay. And the fact of the matter is, as you well know, you'll be on the hook for her salary and her legal fees. If anyone told you otherwise, ask them to indemnify you. Trying to silence his critics is your superintendent's style. Whatever happened in the past happened, but you know the details about Natick.
Mr. Lydecker, I'm going to.
Please don't interrupt me.
Mr. Lydecker.
Please do not interrupt.
Mr. Lydecker.
You're interrupting me.
Be out of order. Mr. Lydecker.
You're interrupting me.
No, Mr. Lydecker, you have been given the opportunity to speak. The superintendent's performance is not before this board. So.
No, but his recommendations before this board. And his recommendation in the past has cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's ironic that you're worried about spending on a preschool when you're willing to go down this route.
Mr. Lydecker, I need to ask you to stop speaking right now. Mr. Scungio.
Mr. Lydecker's comments are really outside the parameters of.
I haven't finished, Ben.
I appreciate that, but please let me speak. The chair
Well,
asked me.
I'd like to finish and then you can go right ahead and speak.
No, Mr. Lydecker, Mr. Lydecker, I'm the.
Let me just conclude by saying this. The decision to terminate Amy Mullen is wrong. We suggest that you don't go down the same rabbit hole they went down in Natick. We suggest that the best remedy is to reinstate her now, immediately.
All right. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on the motion. Mrs. Black. I'm sorry?
I abstain.
Mrs. Black abstains. Mrs. Pavo.
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth.
This video
Yes.
is terrible.
Yeah.
Palish.
Yes.
I vote yes. The vote is 4 yes, 1 abstention. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Black.
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth.
Yes.
Mrs. Palish.
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo.
Yes.
I vote yes. We're adjourned 5-0. Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone.